If someone had told me her steady hands and softer voice would hold me together better than any perfect vow, I would have checked my pulse. Part 1. The air reeked of roses and lies. Lilies lined the aisle like promises, sweet and delicate, but just as easily crushed. Arya stood at the altar, a trembling goddess in white satin, her veil trembling with each shallow breath, her fingers numb around the bouquet that now felt more like a chain. 1,000 eyes stared back at her, waiting, expecting, hungry. But the only eyes she searched for, the only ones she needed, weren't there. Her fiancé, Julian Fairfax, heir to the Fairfax banking empire, was gone. No call, no message, no explanation, just gone. The whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Her mother clutched at pearls she didn't earn, and her father stared at the marble floor as if trying to find his pride in its veins. Arya couldn't breathe. Her heart wasn't broken, it was obliterated. And in that shattering silence, when even the string quartet faltered, she turned on trembling heels, dropped the bouquet, and ran, down the aisle, past judgmental stares and sympathetic gasps until she reached the massive wooden doors and pushed them open like someone escaping a burning building. The sun hit her like a slap. Reporters flashed cameras. Paparazzi screamed questions, but she didn't stop. The heels came off. The dress bunched in her fists, and she ran until her legs gave out. Somewhere near the edge of the city, by a road where no limousines passed, and no silk-lined escapes waited, she collapsed onto the curb, gasping, her face a canvas of mascara and devastation. "Rough day," a voice asked, low and amused. Arya whipped around. A woman stood beside a modest black car, driver's cap slightly crooked, aviators hiding her eyes. Jaw sharp as sin. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." She was chewing gum, too casual for the chaos unraveling around them. "What gave it away?" Arya rasped. The stranger glanced at the white gown and tear-marked cheeks. "Either you bailed on your own vows or someone else's." Arya let out a laugh. Or a sob. Hard to tell. "Need a lift?" the woman asked. "Where to?" "Anywhere except here." She swung the door open like it led to another life. "Name's Rowan." Arya paused, then slid inside. The car carried a scent of mint and release. She didn't press for details. She didn't care about the destination. She just needed motion. Rowan kept quiet while the city drifted by. Shining spires, broken promises. Arya's former world. "You all right?" Rowan asked at last, past the bridges. "No," Arya whispered. "Good." People who claim they're fine right after a crash are either lying or stuffing it down. You don't read like either. Arya glanced over. "You always scoop up barefoot brides off the sidewalk only on Tuesdays." "It's Friday." Rowan quirked a smile. "I'll make an exception." Traffic thinned. Streetlights smeared to streaks, and Arya felt the city loosen its grip a little. The road curled through places Arya didn't know. Eventually, they pulled up to a small cabin by a lake. Timber, cozy, still. Water tapped the dock. Wind combed pines softly. "I rent it," Rowan said, turning the key. "It's not fancy, but it's safe." Arya hesitated. Her life had been penthouses, private chefs, and sharp society claws. Yet none of that mattered now. And something about Rowan, her ease, her dry humor, her total shrug at the wreck Arya was felt like air. "Crash here until you sort things out," Rowan added. "Unless you're marrying someone else tomorrow." "God, no." "Great. Then you get the couch." "I'm not cruel." That night, Arya lay awake, listening to the low hum of the lake, the groan of old boards, and Rowan moving in the kitchen like she fit this quiet place. And for the first time since being abandoned at the altar, Arya felt something strange relief. She didn't know who Rowan really was. She didn't know what came next. But when Rowan slid a steaming cup into her hands and settled across from her, one socked foot tucked under, Arya watched her and felt her stomach tighten. Not from grief, something far more risky. Curiosity. The woman who stopped for her wasn't merely a driver. That much she was starting to gather. What she didn't yet know, what she couldn't have guessed, was that Rowan owned more than the vehicle. She owned the cabin, the acreage, half the county, and the empire Arya once believed she needed to endure. Part 2. The lake looked like glass at dawn, mirroring a sky too bright to fit Arya's mood. She sat on the narrow porch of Rowan's cabin, swaddled in a blanket, her wedding dress crushed beside her like a life thrown away. The tea warmed her palms, but inside she stayed cold, still raw. She hadn't slept. Not really. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Julian's vacant place at the altar, her father's rigid jaw, the burst of 100 flashes as she fled. Here, the silence didn't judge. It soothed. Rowan stepped out barefoot, carrying 2 mugs. She wore a faded black tee, low-slung joggers, and a drowsy look that had no right being that attractive. "Get any sleep?" Rowan asked, offering a fresh mug. "No," Arya said. "Figured. You kept sighing like someone narrating a disaster. Maybe because that someone was me." Rowan sipped her coffee, then sat beside her. "Well, you're alive. That counts for something, does it?" Arya asked, voice brittle. "When everything I thought my life would be just evaporated." Rowan looked at her serious now. "Sometimes that's the best thing that can happen. Being humiliated in front of 500 people. Being freed from a life that wasn't yours." Arya scoffed. "You don't even know me." "You're right. But I know that look. It's the same one I had when I walked away from my old life." Arya turned to her surprised. "You?" Rowan shrugged. "Different dress. Different disaster. But yeah, what did you walk away from?" Rowan paused, eyes flicking to the lake. "Let's just say a life that looked good on paper. But I was suffocating." Arya sipped her tea. "So now you're a driver, among other things." "What does that mean?" Rowan smirked. "It means I do what I want when I want, and I answer to no one." There was something in her tone, casual but edged, like she was telling the truth without telling everything. Arya studied her. Rowan was hard to read. She had the energy of someone who'd seen too much, who had secrets stitched into her skin. And yet, she made Arya feel seen in a way no one else had. Not even Julian, especially not Julian. Later, they went into town for groceries. Arya insisted on coming, even in borrowed clothes and oversized sunglasses. The town was small, quaint, the kind of place where people nodded and smiled and didn't ask questions. Rowan was known here. The cashier called her boss, but Arya assumed it was just a nickname. "You live here full-time?" she asked as they loaded paper bags into the trunk. "No, I have places." "Places, cabins, apartments. Depends on the mood." "Sounds like a dream." "Freedom is a dream. Most people are too afraid to chase it." That night, after cooking a surprisingly good pasta together, Arya chopping vegetables like it was therapy and Rowan humming along to an old vinyl record, Arya found herself watching Rowan more than she should. The way her hands moved, the curve of her smile, the way she made space without asking questions. "Why are you helping me?" Arya asked quietly. Rowan looked up from her glass of wine. "Because I've been you, and because you looked like you needed someone to remind you that the world doesn't end when one man vanishes." "It wasn't just him," Arya whispered. "It was my future, my place, my name." "No," Rowan said gently. "It was their version of your future, their idea of your place, their name, not yours." The words hit something deep. Arya felt tears rise again, but this time she didn't hide them. Rowan just reached over and squeezed her hand, warm and firm, and it undid something. Later, long after Rowan went to bed, Arya stood by the lake in borrowed sweatpants, staring at her reflection. Who was she without the hawthorns, without the mansion, the image, the expectations? She didn't know, but maybe that was the point. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Can't sleep again? Rowan asked, her voice low. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. They stood in silence for a long time, side by side. Then Rowan said, You don't have to figure it all out tonight. Just breathe. That's enough for now. Arya turned to her. Why do you always say the right thing? Rowan smirked. I don't. I just say what I wish someone had told me. Arya looked at her, really looked. And something shifted. Not just gratitude, not just comfort. It was the start of a pull, subtle, electric. She took a half step closer. Rowan didn't move away. The moment stretched between them like a string drawn tight. Then Rowan gently broke it. Come on, it's cold. You'll freeze before you find yourself. Arya smiled just barely, but it was real. She followed Rowan back into the cabin. Her heart beat louder than the wind. She still didn't know who she was. But tonight, she knew who she wanted near. Arya woke with sunlight on her face and the scent of coffee in the air. But her chest still carried the weight of everything unspoken between them. Rowan was in the kitchen, humming some old blues tune, barefoot again. Sleeves rolled up as she flipped pancakes like it was second nature. Arya stood in the doorway for a moment watching her, and something in her had. Not the broken part from the wedding, but something newer, more confusing, more dangerous. Rowan glanced over. You want some? I'm not really hungry, Arya murmured, stepping closer. That's what sad people say before eating half the stack. I'm not sad. Rowan raised an eyebrow. Okay, you're just brooding in gray sweatpants, staring at me like a wounded poet. Arya couldn't help the soft laugh that escaped. Fine, maybe a little hungry. Victory. They sat at the small table, the morning sun pouring in like liquid gold. Arya stabbed at a pancake. You know, it's weird. I should still be crying, but I'm not. That's not weird, Rowan said. That's survival. It feels more like detachment, like I don't recognize myself anymore. Maybe you're meeting the true you for the first time. The line struck something true and undeniable inside her deep. Yet Arya said nothing. Instead, she looked at Rowan. Really? Looked. Why are you single? Rowan smirked. That a breakfast table question. I'm serious. Rowan leaned back in her chair. Because I don't do pretend and most people can't take real. You think I'm fake? No, Rowan answered slowly. I think you've been pushed to be, but not by choice. Arya stared down. Julian liked when I stayed quiet in public. Said it was more elegant. Rowan's jaw tightened. Elegant sounds like code for obedient. He wasn't cruel, just managed everything. And you let him? Arya winced. Rowan sighed. Sorry, that was blunt. No, it's fair. I did let him. I wanted the life he offered. What did he offer? Power, status, a future etched in gold, and love. Arya paused. I thought so. But maybe I just love the idea of being loved. Rowan studied her. That's not the same thing. I know, I do. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was full of unsaid truths. That afternoon, Arya wandered to the dock with a journal she found in a drawer. She hadn't written in years, yet the words spilled now, angry and raw and oddly beautiful. She wrote about being left, about losing herself, about Rowan. She wasn't sure why she included her, but she did. The way Rowan moved, spoke, saw her. She wrote about how it made her feel something she didn't have a name for, something new. Something that frightened her. She didn't hear Rowan coming until she sat beside her, 2 lemonades in hand. Didn't peg you for a writer? Rowan said. I'm not. Could have fooled me. Arya glanced at her. You read it? Nope. Just saw the look on your face. That's the look of someone bleeding on paper. Arya offered a small smile. It helps. Rowan nodded. So does this. She passed her a lemonade. Their fingers touched. The contact was brief but electric. Arya felt her breath hitch and hated how obvious it probably was. You ever think what you'd do if you weren't you? Rowan asked suddenly. All the time. but I don't even know who I am now. Good. That means you're free to figure it out. Arya looked at her, eyes narrowing. You talk like someone who's already figured it all out. Nope. I talk like someone who stopped forcing myself into boxes that weren't made for me. And now you just drive people around. Rowan laughed a low, warm sound. Is that how you still see me? I don't know how I see you. Good. Rowan stood. Keep it that way. But there was something playful in her eyes. Something that invited pursuit. That evening, Rowan offered to take Arya out on the lake. Just a small boat. Nothing fancy. And the water was smooth while the sky was fire orange with dusk. Arya sat at the front, wind in her hair, for once not thinking about what the tabloids were saying or what her family was planning. I needed this, she said quietly. Rowan looked up. I know. You always know. Nah. I just listened better than most. Arya turned toward her. Why did you really pick me up that day? Rowan blinked. What? You don't know me. Why did you help me? Rowan stopped rowing. The boat drifted in quiet. Then slowly, because you looked like someone who'd been pretending so long she didn't even remember how to come apart. And I know what that feels like. Arya's throat tightened. I'm tired of pretending. Rowan's eyes met hers. Then don't. The distance between them was small. So small. Arya leaned forward just slightly and Rowan didn't move away. Didn't stop her. Their faces were inches apart when a sudden breeze rocked the boat, jarring them back. Rowan exhaled. We should head in. But her voice was now unsteady. Arya didn't protest. Back at the cabin, Rowan disappeared into her room without another word. Arya stood in the hallway, heart racing. She pressed a hand to her chest trying to study it. She didn't know what was happening. Or maybe she did. And that was what terrified her. Arya couldn't sleep again. The air in the cabin felt too still. Like the moment on the boat had unsettled something beneath her skin. And now nothing fit quite right. She kept replaying it. How close they'd been. The look in Rowan's eyes. The way neither of them had spoken afterward. It hadn't been nothing. She knew that. But the silence since then made her question everything. When morning came, Rowan was already gone. No note. No message. Just a steaming mug of coffee left on the counter and an empty dock where the boat bobbed gently. Arya sat on the porch, staring out at the lake, hugging her knees to her chest. Her heart was louder now, harder to ignore. There was a pull between them, magnetic and maddening. And yet Rowan kept stepping back every time it got close to tipping into something real. Arya didn't know if it was fear, restraint, or some deeper reason Rowan hadn't shared. Whatever it was, it made her feel like she was suspended in mad air on the edge of something that could either catch her or let her fall. When Rowan returned mid-morning, her expression was unreadable. Town run, she said casually, unloading a brown paper bag from the passenger seat. Got eggs, coffee, and those strawberry things you pretended not to love. Arya tried to smile. You didn't have to. I wanted to. The words hung in the air, heavier than they should have been. Thanks. Rowan hesitated, then said, I figure we could go for a hike later. Get out of the cabin. Stretch your legs. Clear your head. Clear yours, too? Arya asked, not hiding the edge in her tone. Rowan glanced at her. Maybe the trail behind the cabin twisted through pine trees and wildflowers. A quiet escape from the lake stillness. Arya walked beside Rowan in silence, stealing glances at her when she thought she wouldn't notice. There was always something guarded about Rowan, like she'd built walls so high even she couldn't remember what was behind them. You always this emotionally unavailable? Or is it just with me? Arya asked suddenly, stopping on the path. Rowan turned surprised. Excuse me, don't play dumb. We almost kissed last night. Rowan looked away. Yeah, we did. And then you vanished like nothing happened. Because nothing did. Rowan's jaw clenched. What do you want me to say, Arya? The truth. For once. Rowan ran a hand through her hair, frustrated. The truth is, I don't do this. I don't get involved. especially not with people who are healing, fragile, confused. So, I'm just a mess to you. No, Rowan said, her voice low. You're too much. You make me feel things I don't want to feel. Things I buried a long time ago. So, burying them again is easier than being honest. Yes, Rowan snapped. Then, softer? Yes, because I've seen what happens when I let people in, and I'm not doing that again. Arya stared at her, chest heaving. Then why did you pick me up that day? Why bring me here? Cook for me. Talk to me like I matter. Because you do matter. The words came out like a confession Rowan hadn't meant to say. They stared at each other, the wind catching the trees like a sigh. Then Rowan turned and started walking again. Arya followed, her heart in free fall. At the top of the trail, they found a rocky overlook with a sweeping view of the lake below. Rowan sat on a boulder, shoulders tense. Arya sat beside her. You're scared, she said gently. And you're not? Rowan asked. I am, but I'm more afraid of feeling nothing than feeling too much. Rowan looked at her then, something raw in her expression. You don't even know who I really am. Then show me. Rowan said nothing, just stared at the horizon. That night, back at the cabin, things were quieter than usual. They didn't cook. They ordered takeout from the nearest town, sat on the floor eating noodles from boxes. Rowan was different, softer, but also more distant, like she let a piece of herself slip through, and was now trying to reel it back in. Arya watched her, every movement, every glance, and the tension between them crackled like a live wire. After dinner, Rowan stood and said, I need to show you something. She led Arya to a small office in the back of the cabin, one Arya hadn't even noticed before. Inside, sleek equipment, framed architectural prints, blueprints, files, and a large monitor hummed to life. What is this? Arya asked. Rowan exhaled. My work, my company. I build, design, invest. I'm not just a driver. That was never really the point. But this looks like a multi-million-dollar setup. Because it is. Arya stared at her. You're rich. Rowan hesitated. Wealthy, successful, independent. Take your pick. Why didn't you tell me? Because the moment people know, they change. They want something or they resent it. Or they see you as a number, not a person. And what do you think I do? Rowan looked at her. I didn't know. Still don't. Arya stepped closer. You think I'd care more about your bank account than your silence? Then the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Rowan didn't respond. You think I ran from my wedding just to fall for another lie? Rowan's breath hitched. I'm not lying. Then stop hiding. Arya touched her hand. Rowan didn't pull away. Tell me who you really are. Rowan swallowed. I'm someone who built an empire from nothing. Who left a family that didn't believe in me. Who lost the woman I loved because I was too afraid to fight for her. I've spent years hiding in plain sight, driving strangers around, renting cabins, building businesses under shell names just to stay invisible. And then you showed up in that damn dress, barefoot and broken. And you looked at me like I was someone worth trusting. Arya felt tears sting her eyes. You are. They stood there, the monitor glowing behind them, the weight of their truths finally spoken. And just when it felt like everything might fall into place, Rowan stepped back. I need space. The words cut like glass. Arya nodded, her chest tight. Fine. She left the room without another word. Behind her, Rowan sat in the chair, face in her hands, like she'd just torn herself open and wasn't sure how to survive it. The days that followed were filled with almost conversations, almost confessions, almost touches. Rowan withdrew into herself, quieter than before, and Arya felt every inch of that distance like a bruise spreading across her chest. They still shared the same space, the same meals, the same quiet mornings by the lake, but the connection that had been crackling between them, like fire, now simmered beneath a layer of self-imposed restraint. Rowan was different now, not just in silence, but in the way she moved around Arya carefully. Like Arya had become something fragile or dangerous or both. Arya hated it. She didn't want to be feared or protected. She wanted to be seen, touched, chosen. She wanted Rowan fully and without hesitation. And the refusal to acknowledge what was clearly growing between them felt more cruel than comforting. One evening, as the rain drizzled against the windows and the smell of cedar filled the living room, Arya finally snapped. "You can't keep pretending this isn't happening," she said, setting down her wine glass with more force than necessary. Rowan didn't look up from the blueprint she was studying. "I'm not pretending. I'm protecting from what? From me. From this," Rowan said tightly. "From the possibility that I'll let myself care again and it'll ruin everything. Then it already has." Rowan stood up. "Arya, no," she interrupted, standing too. "You don't get to pull me into your world. Show me who you really are. Make me feel all of this, and then disappear behind some noble excuse about protection. That's not fair." Rowan's jaw clenched. "This isn't about fairness. Then what is it about?" Arya demanded. "Fear, pride, control. It's about the fact that you just got left at the altar. And maybe, just maybe, you're not ready for what this could be." "Don't put this on me," Arya said, her voice trembling. "I may be healing, but I know what I feel and I know when someone's running." Rowan exhaled sharply, turning away. "You don't understand. Then help me understand." Arya's voice cracked. "Because I'm tired of guessing what I did wrong." Rowan turned back, eyes burning. "You didn't do anything wrong. That's the problem." The silence between them pulsed with tension, the weight of every word unsaid pressing into their skin. Rowan took a slow breath. "You showed up in my life and reminded me of everything I stopped believing in, and I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything," Arya said, her voice softer now. "Just stop pushing me away." For a moment, Rowan looked like she might say something, might finally cross that impossible distance between them. But instead, she turned and walked out the door into the rain. Arya stood there, heart pounding, every part of her screaming with the need to chase her. But she didn't. Not this time. She sat back down, staring at the empty chair Rowan had left behind, and realized that whatever was building between them had now reached a tipping point. That night, she couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't just longing. It was resolve. She slipped into the office Rowan had shown her days ago, sat at the desk, and looked at the files. The plans, the quiet empire Rowan had kept hidden from the world. There were photos, too. Some of Rowan at ribbon cuttings, others of properties under construction. Even a few candid shots of her with people Arya didn't recognize. And in everyone, Rowan had that same guarded strength, the same quiet fire. But one thing was missing: joy. Not once did she look truly happy. Until now. Until here. Until Arya. That realization hit like lightning. This wasn't just about fear of being hurt. This was about fear of being known and loved. Anyway, the next morning, Arya was waiting when Rowan came back from her run, rain-soaked and breathless. "We need to talk," Arya said. Rowan looked wary, but nodded. "Okay. I'm not a charity case," Arya began. "I'm not some broken girl you picked up and now don't know what to do with. I'm not going to fall apart if this gets real. But I will walk away if you keep treating me like something you have to hide from." Rowan stared at her, soaked hair plastered to her forehead, chest rising and falling. "I've never wanted something as badly as I want you," she said quietly. "And that terrifies me." "Then let it terrify you," Arya whispered. "But don't run from it." Rowan stepped forward slow, cautious. "If I give in to this, I'm all in. No walls, no hiding. You need to be sure." "I am," Arya said without hesitation. "Then I'm done pretending." And just like that, Rowan pulled her into a kiss that wasn't soft or attentive. It was a storm breaking. It was everything unsaid, every almost, every repressed desire crashing forward in a tidal wave of need. Arya melted into her, fingers tangling in Rowan's wet shirt, and for the first time, she felt whole. Not because someone was saving her, but because someone finally saw her. When they broke apart, foreheads touching, Rowan whispered, "Stay. I'm not going anywhere." Arya breathed. Later, wrapped in blankets by the fire, Arya traced lazy circles on Rowan's arm and asked, "What now?" Rowan looked at her, something new in her eyes. "Hope. Now we figured out together." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Arya believed it. The cabin had never felt more alive. Morning light poured through the windows like a quiet blessing, and for the first time since everything fell apart at the altar, Arya didn't wake feeling like she was sinking. Rowan still lay beside her, an arm resting over Arya's waist, breath slow and steady. There was a calm in her Arya hadn't witnessed before, as if she'd finally paused the running. At least for now. For once, the room felt kind, patient, quietly forgiving. Her breath steadied. Thoughts slowed at the edges. Arya stayed there quietly, eyes tracing the ceiling, absorbing the warmth of Rowan's body and the faint hum of all they'd shared the night before. It wasn't only desire. It felt like something sacred, something that stripped them both down to their truest selves. Rowan shifted a little and murmured, "You're staring." "I'm thinking," Arya breathed. "Dangerous," Rowan teased, voice rough with sleep. "I know," Arya whispered, "but I'm allowed to think now, right?" Rowan smiled without opening her eyes. "You're allowed to do anything you want." That should have soothed her. Yet the truth was, the world beyond these walls hadn't vanished. It was waiting, watching, and neither of them could ignore it forever. Later, while Rowan handled a business call, her tone sharp, precise, entirely different from the Rowan Arya thought she knew. Arya sat on the porch with her phone in hand. For days she'd avoided the flood of missed calls and unread messages. But now curiosity outweighed fear. Her fingers shook slightly as she scrolled through them. Her parents, her sister, friends, journalists, a few from Julian, surprisingly brief and empty. But the one that stopped her breath was a push alert from the tabloids. Runaway bride found holed up with unknown woman in remote cabin. Exclusive photos inside. Her blood went cold. She tapped the link, and there it was. Grainy zoomed in shots of her and Rowan unloading groceries, standing on the dock, sitting to close on the porch. They must have been taken from the trees. Paparazzi. Somehow they'd tracked her. She dropped the phone like it burned. Rowan stepped out a moment later mid-sentence and froze at Arya's face. "What happened?" Arya didn't answer instantly. She just passed over the phone. Rowan looked once and her jaw set. "They found me," Arya said quietly. "They found us." Rowan paced for a beat, then sank beside her, scanning the post. "It's vague enough. No names, just guessing." "Guessing is enough," Arya said. "You know how my family operates, how the press feeds. If they sense scandal, they'll tear us both apart. I'll shield you. You can't shield me from this. Try me, Rowan." Arya looked at her, open in a way that made Rowan want to break. "They're going to turn this into something rotten. You have a life, a company, a reputation, and her voice splintered. I just started breathing again. "I don't want to be dragged back under." Rowan cupped her face softly. "Then we don't let them. We stay put. We keep low. We don't hand them what they want." "You really think hiding fixes it?" "No," Rowan conceded, "but it buys us time." That night, the current between them was heavier. Not shattered, just weighted by the real. They still touched, still kissed, but a question echoed in the quiet. What happens when the world slams through the door? Rowan was up early the next morning, laptop open, fingers flying over the keys. Arya sat beside her watching the screen. "What are you doing?" "Fixing things by emailing contractors, by transferring assets, creating firewalls, cleaning digital footprints." "Rowan, I've done this before," she said calmly. "You don't survive in my world without learning how to disappear or how to erase someone." From a headline, Arya stared at her, You scare me sometimes. Rowan looked at her. Good. That means I'm not the fairy tale you think I am. I never thought that. You're real. That's what terrifies me. Rowan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Days passed. The cabin became both sanctuary and prison. Rowan rarely left, always working, always watching the tree line like a soldier expecting an ambush. Arya tried to distract herself, reading, walking, writing. But her thoughts always circled back to the inevitable. This couldn't last. And one afternoon, the knock on the door proved her right. Rowan froze. Arya's breath caught. Another knock. Firm, controlled. Rowan stood and walked slowly to the door. When she opened it, a tall man in a black suit stood there, flanked by another. Miss Pierce, he said. Rowan's body language shifted. Cold, composed, deadly. You shouldn't be here. We have a situation. Your name's about to be attached to a runaway bride scandal. The board wants to know if the rumors are true. Arya stood behind her, heart hammering. Rowan didn't even blink. Tell the board to keep their noses out of my personal life. And if they push, I'll remind them who holds the majority shares. This affects public image. Then let them spin it. Let them underestimate me. They always do. The man looked past her at Arya. She's not good for optics. Then optics will have to adjust. Rowan snapped, slamming the door in his face. Arya stared at her. What happens now? Rowan turned to her slowly. Now we stopped pretending we're not at war. Part 3. The war had begun, but the battlefield wasn't a boardroom or a courtroom. It was the world outside their quiet little sanctuary, the one Arya had tried so hard to forget and Rowan had worked so long to avoid. In the days that followed the visit from Rowan's corporate watchdogs, things shifted. Not between them. If anything, the bond between Rowan and Arya grew stronger, more defined. But around them, the outside world, once held at bay, was now clawing at the walls. Rowan was on her phone more often, speaking in low-clipped tones. Legal teams, PR strategists, security contacts. It was like watching someone put on armor piece by piece, her softness replaced by something sharp and untouchable. Arya tried not to feel small in comparison, but it wasn't easy. You don't have to protect me from everything, she said one morning, watching Rowan finish a call. Rowan turned. I'm not just protecting you, I'm protecting us. But you're the one taking the hits because I know how, and because no one else will. Arya crossed the room and touched her arm. I want to fight, too. Don't shut me out. Rowan's eyes softened. Just a little. I'm not shutting you out. I'm shielding you until the storm passes. What if it never does? Then we build a shelter together. It sounded noble, even romantic, but it didn't stop the dread curling in Arya's stomach, especially when the next call came. Not for Rowan, but for her. It was her mother. Arya stared at the name flashing across the screen like a warning. Answer it, Rowan said quietly. You'll never be free of them if you don't start setting boundaries. Arya answered, Mother. So, it's true. Her mother snapped without preamble. You've run off with some woman. What the hell are you thinking, Arya? I'm thinking for myself. Finally. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? Your father is livid. The Hawthorns are threatening legal action for breach of contract. And now the media is having a field day because you're hiding out with some nobody. She's not a nobody. She's not Julian. Thank God for that, Arya muttered. Her mother's gasp was audible. You think this is funny? Your father's talking about cutting you off. No trust fund. No inheritance. You're destroying everything we built for you. You built a prison and I'm walking away from it. You'll regret this. Her mother hissed. One day when that woman gets bored or you realize how far you've fallen. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. Arya ended the call. Her hands were shaking, but her heart felt strangely steady. Rowan had been listening, leaning against the doorway. You okay? Arya turned, eyes glassy but proud. I think I just burned the last bridge I had to my old life. Rowan walked to her, brushing a thumb across her cheek. Then it's time to start building something new. That afternoon, a car arrived, not flashy, one of Rowan's, no doubt. The driver handed her a thick envelope and left without a word. Arya sat beside her on the porch as Rowan opened it. Inside documents, statements, photos. Arya caught a glimpse of a glossy magazine mock-up, her face on the cover beside Rowan's. The headline read, "From Wedding Bells to War. The woman who stole the runaway bride's heart." Arya's stomach turned. "They're painting you as some homewrecker." Rowan flipped to another page and you as a confused heiress having a mental breakdown. "It's a narrative, one they can sell." "Huh. How do we stop it? We rewrite it." That night, Rowan sat down and drafted a public statement. It was raw, unapologetic, and full of fire. She didn't hide their relationship. She didn't play victim. She simply told the truth about how she met Arya. How love was never meant to be explained to people who wanted it to follow rules. And she signed it with her full name, Rowan Pierce, CEO, founder, and unapologetic woman in love. "You sure about this?" Arya asked, heart pounding. "Once it's out, there's no going back." Rowan looked at her, something unshakable in her gaze. "You're the only thing I've ever been sure of." The next morning, the internet exploded. Some comments were brutal, others shockingly supportive. Hashtags trended, news anchors debated, former allies turned cold, new admirers emerged. But none of that mattered compared to what came next. A letter hand-delivered from Julian. Arya opened it in silence, Rowan beside her. It was short. "Arya, I hope you're happy. You certainly made a spectacle of things. Just know this isn't over. Some mistakes come with consequences. D." Arya felt the chill of it crawl under her skin. Rowan read it too and said nothing, but her jaw tightened and she slid her hand into Arya's, squeezing just enough to say, "I won't let him touch you." But they both knew it wouldn't end there. It started with the letter, but it didn't end there. Within 48 hours, Arya's email was flooded with cryptic messages. No subject lines, no sender names, just one sentence repeated over and over again. "You don't know who she really is." Rowan traced the IP addresses, dead ends, and proxies. She cursed under her breath as she shut the laptop. "Julian," she said. "It has to be." Arya sat at the kitchen table, her fingers wrapped tightly around a mug she hadn't touched. "He's playing a game." "No," Rowan said. "He's escalating, and he's good at it." "How do you know?" Rowan looked at her, then slowly sat across from her. "Because I've played games like this before with men like him. Only difference is this time I actually have something to lose." Arya reached across the table, covering Rowan's hand. "We're not going to let him win." Rowan gave her a small, weary smile. "Then we need to think like him. Smarter, colder." The next day, they left the cabin. It wasn't safe anymore. Not because of Julian's threats, but because the world knew where they were. Rowan drove them to one of her properties upstate, an old stone estate hidden behind dense trees and a winding private road. It was colder here, and the house creaked with history, but Arya could breathe again. For a moment, they spent the first night curled up in front of the fireplace, talking in hushed tones about their pasts. Finally, Arya spoke of boarding schools and cold dinners with people who only spoke in investment terms. Rowan told her about sleeping in her car during her first year out of college, working two jobs while building a side business no one believed in. "I taught myself to disappear before anyone could leave me," Rowan said, staring into the flames. "That's what I'm still unlearning. And I let people write my story for me," Arya whispered. "But not anymore." Rowan kissed her slow and deep, like sealing a promise. But the peace didn't last. For part 2, subscribe to our channel and ring the bell.